Welcome again to Politics for the Culture. I'm your host, Senator Dwight Bullard. Excited to be here, excited to be in the company of greatness. I'm going to keep the intro short, but for those who have not been following the dynamic person that I'm about to introduce, you're going to get to know somebody special. As you know, we're in the midst of election season all across the country, especially here in the state of Florida. We're actually in the midst of early voting. And so understand that all politics is local. And so what I want to bring up is somebody who's been a history maker, somebody who has committed themselves to really justice at the end of the day. And I want to bring somebody who, again, has broken all the barriers and the ceilings. We have a very, troubled racial history here in the state of Florida, as everyone knows, because we are one of the states that was part of the Confederacy. And so we did not have a Black state attorney until this woman stepped on the scene back in 2016. And so without further ado, I want to introduce to everyone our candidate for Florida Attorney General here in the state of Florida, or one of the candidates, but my personal favorite of the candidates for Florida Attorney General here in the state of Florida, none other than the great Aramis Ayala. Aramis, so happy to be with you and in the presence on the show. How are you doing?
It's good to be with you always. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. I mean, you've been, as we said, a history maker, kind of unheralded, right? Because oftentimes people don't appreciate those folks who are out here seeking justice on behalf of our community, right? We have 50 states around the country, all who have an attorney general, right? Why should people be paying attention to the office of the attorney general in their state, and especially here in the state of Florida?
When it comes to the attorney general, there's two different there's multiple responsibilities, but two are extremely important. And one is the pursuit of justice on behalf of the people of that state. The other one is public safety. And often those two don't look the same. When you're trying to keep communities safe, what are we doing? We may have over policing, but then we have to have justice. So striking that balance is extremely important. The job of the attorney general is to be the voice of the people. We often understand the concept of governor. We often understand the concept of the legislators, both Senate and House. The reality is they're political, often, having to agree with others. The executive position of the attorney general is the legal standard, deciding whether or not the state pursues things, in a court of law, whether or not we're going to concede that something is unconstitutional. For example, in the state of Florida, voting districts. These are the things that the attorney general does. We make certain that, when people are being defrauded and there's large companies taking over, that's the stop. When you have a dictator as a governor, that's the stop. So the attorney general is the one who is the block between injustice from those in power and the freedom and rights of those who have to rely on those in power. And it is her responsibility to speak up, to stand out, and to use the law to protect them.
Well, that is a lot. I mean, just as a quick follow-up to that, right? So for layman's terms, right? For people who are now just kind of tuning in, figuring out, okay, so here's this dynamic personality that I'm thinking about voting for. Why are you the best option for attorney general?
It takes experience. And you mentioned me serving as the state attorney. That took experience. I've been an assistant public defender. I've been an assistant state attorney, an adjunct professor at FAMU, also a full-time professor right now at the University of Central Florida. So having, this 360 view of the law, having represented crime victims, also representing those who are charged with crimes, but most importantly, that experience taking on the power structures, taking on the status quo. Being the first isn't easy, right? Like people often, oh my gosh, you were the first, you're breaking glass ceilings. And I'm like, yes, and I have the scars to prove it. Because when you go through that glass, it feels good and it feels powerful. But after that moment, you're cut up and there's bruising. So me having recovered and now understanding how they navigate on a way that you only know by experience, that's what makes me prepared. Not just my education and my experience in courtrooms and understanding the law, but my understanding of the status quo of those power structures who are working for the wealthy and not necessarily the people. Beginning to take a hit at those things and truly representing the people. That's what makes me qualified.
Oh well, hey, you don't have to tell me twice. I totally appreciate it. I for one have already early voted. I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, but let's just say, there's a bubble. I was
Just say the first one. You went alphabetical order.
There we go. I mean, when your names both start with A, it makes it easy. So you talked about the glass ceiling. So 1972, Shirley Chisholm decides she wants to run for president of the United States, right? Mm-hmm. And makes this big splash, right? For a lot of folks, she's been invoked for Black women who have run for office. But what I've seen over the last 5 years is a lot of dynamic and amazing Black women, really jumping into spaces that had not been previously occupied by Black women. We have Black women mayors in places like Charlotte, North Carolina, and New Orleans. We have, Tish James, who's an attorney general out there in New York. And of course, we have the vice president of the United States, who happens to be a Black woman, right? What is it about Black women in this moment, and for you as a Black woman, that you feel is happening? What's bubbling that's telling Black women to say, all right, enough is enough. Let's step into our purpose, step into these places that we haven't been before, and as they say, do the damn thing.
And honestly, I wasn't going to say it like that, but I think that's what seriously, that's what people are dealing with. I think it's two things. The first one is that's just who we are. When something isn't getting done, Black women don't have the well, let me just see and wait, or let's just hope. No, we got to take care of families. We got to take care of children, our parents, our communities. That's just what we do. And we're not about whose fault it is. We're about whose responsibility is it. And that's what we do. We get up, take responsibility, and charge on. That's the job. That's what we have to do. The other part of it is that looking at especially the Democratic Party, we work for people. We help people, we strategize, give ideas, undergird the entire power structures within a party. And if we can work for you, then yeah, we can work for you with our names on the ballot, with us creating a vision and you following us. Right now, it's about the people who have been at the base, piercing through and saying, I'm not just going to give you ideas and hope that you implement them. I'm going to exercise those ideas and make sure that they happen.
As a quick follow-up to that, since we got a little bit of time, I'm curious, who's the Black woman that inspires you, in this space? I mean, you've been involved in politics for a while, you've run for office, now you're running for a statewide office. Is there somebody, a torchbearer, a shero that you carry with you that's been your inspiration in this process?
You brought up Shirley Chisholm. And I remember the first time that I received an award from the National Congress of Black Women. It was a Shirley Chisholm Award, unbought and unbossed. Anybody who can get that label, that definition, I want that. Because so many people can be bought. And I consider myself unbought and unbossed. And that is what inspires me to continue to wear that at all costs. Doesn't mean that, you assure reelection, but it means that you ensure your integrity, your character, and hope for the people. So I would certainly recognize Shirley Chisholm.
Oh, that is awesome. Also one of my all-time favorites. So, thank you for giving up the time today, but I know that you're crisscrossing the state, 67 counties, almost 23 million people here in the state of Florida. You're trying to talk to as many as you can, be in front of as many as you can. I'm curious at this moment, as you're, spending gas, which is conveniently under $4 now in some places, luckily, but traveling around the state, what's keeping you grounded in the midst of all this, of all the chaos that comes with a campaign?
I can't even be ultra dignified and professional on this. My husband. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. We have such a real relationship, just authentic, that I can talk to him about it all. He gets the movement, so he helps encourage me. And if there's any hey, what should I encouragement from the people, he speaks. He's also a professional as an executive director. If I'm losing that, so it's just that. But then what he really does is he'll say, Aramis, take a minute. You got to do self-care. Take a minute with the girls. You know what? I'm just going to take you out tonight. So it's about having someone who knows all of you and not just the political version of you and wants to see the best version of you win, whether, whatever the outcome of the race is. So definitely my husband.
Oh, well, shout out to.
And I got to say my daddy. Can I? I mean, I'm a daddy's girl. We were just texting a minute ago. So I have very strong men in my life, and I got to recognize my dad too.
Yeah, and big shout out to David. We actually, we're doing a project. We're trying to encourage Black men to get out and vote and be engaged. And he popped on the call last night, so I want to thank him personally for showing up for us last night for the work that we're trying to do as well. Just inspire other brothers to get out there and show up and show out, especially on behalf of Black women who are out here, as I said, doing the damn thing, right? So this is called Politics for the Culture. So, the curiosity has me wondering, what is it that's inspiring you in the culture in this moment? What is it about the culture in this space? Is it the food? Is it the music? Take your time, but go ahead. Tell me what's inspiring you right now for the culture.
2 words: Black Twitter. There's nothing like it. If you ever need, because I'm in this space and have to, monitor and remain and say things and make certain that I'm not turning people off and remain polished and do the right thing. So just sometimes just knowing that somebody's just going to say it like it needs to be said, saying what it is, that's what gives me life is Black Twitter.
Oh man, I love it. What's fascinating about Black Twitter, and I know we're gonna have folks who watch this and be like, is Black Twitter a thing? I look for the app, I can't download it. I just want to let folks know Black Twitter is still just regular Twitter, but sort of like when we say, do you know who Boo Boo the Fool is, right? It's like we don't know who it is, but we know who it ain't, right? So that's how Black Twitter works, right? We understand that that's what it is. As I mentioned before, you're such a dynamic individual, having already broken through glass ceilings. I want to give you a little bit of time to tell the viewers, where they can reach you at, how they can follow you, who they should be talking to, what's the website, all the things to let folks know why they need to get to know and need to follow Aramis Ayala.
That's not fair. You asked me about Black Twitter, and then you want me to get back dignified into this. Again, my name is Aramis Ayala. I am running to be Florida's next Attorney General. You can visit my website at aramisayalafl.com, and you will see the issues, the way forward, what I stand for. You can also make a contribution to the campaign, but certainly I ask for your vote on or before August 23rd. After I'm successful in this primary, I'll ask for it again on or before November 8th. Either way, know that you are getting someone who is going to care about your constitutional rights, public safety, and create an economy that works for us all. Vote Aramis Ayala for Attorney General.
So before you go, I just got to, give you your flowers while you're here, right? I mean, we talk about this notion of breaking barriers and making history, but understand that takes, that you're dealing with a real life individual, right? Somebody who's making sacrifices, who's a mother, who's a wife, who's a daughter, who's, going through those trials and tribulations. I mean, if folks don't know your story, we're talking about somebody here who's a cancer survivor at a young age who, in spite of all that, decided to continue to push through. So I want to thank you for coming on Politics for the Culture, but I also want to, honor you in the sense that folks who do not know, whether you agree, regardless of what your political affiliation is, you need to know who folks are, in the purest sense of the word. And so what Politics for the Culture aims to do is try to give you a kind of look inside of a person, look at things from a non-traditional standpoint, allow folks to be both dignified and very much real. And in this moment, I want to thank you for doing both on the show and joining us here on Politics for the Culture, Aramis. Look forward to your continued journey and continued success, whether it's in academia or politics, but I do have a sneaking suspicion that your political aims and goals are not yet over. And so again, thank you for being on Politics for the Culture, and thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for what you do nonstop. Real talk.
Appreciate you.